You know, holidays. Holidays are always interesting, especially holidays that spread in and around and among Christian holidays around non-Christian. And you know, you see that at Christmas time, all the Christmas lights are out. Now, some people don't want to celebrate it, but most people, at least in certain countries, do. I remember in Bangkok, Thailand, when I was there, Christmas time, you know, around December 1, I was there, and it was pretty hot, you know, as it was in Bangkok oftentimes at that time of year. And I start seeing Christmas lights at the mall, and my Uncle Jerry was there with me. I said, Uncle Jerry, do they celebrate Christmas here? This is a Buddhist country. He goes, oh, yeah. They'll celebrate anything that they can sell something. So they'll take it all. That's Eastern, you know. It's kind of like with the Hindus. You'll say with the Hindu Indians, what they'll do is they'll say, there's a bunch of gods, and then they see Jesus, and they say, yeah, well, hey, one more is good. Put one more in, maybe that guy will help me with this. You know how it is. And that's Asia, you know, works like that. But then you have more Middle East. It's totally different than that. It's like one or the other. It's very direct and strong. And America somewhat tends to be. We're kind of bending the other way. But for the most part, in this country, we do celebrate Christmas, even though many do not believe at all in Jesus. And I was reminded about that. As I was getting bagels in the morning, sometimes when Anna's getting ready, I'll get in the car early. It helps me to clear my mind. I go, and I went down to Avon's. And I get these bagels, a little cheese on them. A little bit, the vegans, anybody's vegan, please close your ears. All right, so but the jalapenos, so that makes it a little better. You know, you throw a jalapeno on there, and, you know, kind of offsets the cheese, right? Never mind. So I get it, cut it up, put it in the toaster. But as I was there, this lady was, as we're coming up to Easter, saying, be blessed, happy Easter. And you know, all the conversations, and I don't know if it's something I looked like afterwards, so I said, as we're going, I said, God bless you, happy Easter. And she immediately, her face kind of went to like almost a frown. You know, those micro, and then you go back to your normal. You know how you see that? You can really know someone kind of by those micro things. Someone, you know, oh, something went well for me. If someone goes like this, and then you go, oh, you know, that's how you kind of say, because masks can only stay up so long. And there was this, it was kind of macro. Happy, and she really didn't have much to say. She says, okay, be blessed, and it was done. And I said, is it because I'm a white guy? Welcome to Los Angeles, right? But then again, someone that's a brown would say the same thing, and someone that's a black would say the same thing. You know how we all are. And I started thinking, maybe it has nothing to do with that. Maybe we're just people. Maybe we're culturally people that are celebrating Easter. But we don't really believe. Now that's a whole different thing. That's where we get out of the social, we get out of all the different things, and it becomes more like and it made me think. It really made me think. And I know we know this. We celebrate Easter. The children put out eggs, have a bunch of rabbits around. By the way, that's a fertility thing. And, you know, but we've forgotten why. What does it mean? Well, on the night Jesus was betrayed, he said, here is my body that's broken for you. Remember that with communion? Here is my blood of the new covenant. Do this in remembrance of me. And then Jesus moved across the valley over to the Mount of Olives. as he prayed. And he asked his disciples to be with him. And of course, those disciples were tired. They had been going all day. They'd been getting things ready for Passover because it was Passover the evening. Remember, as the sun goes down, it becomes the next day. So Passover began. That is why the Seder is supposed to happen as the sun is lowering, as you're lighting the candles, just after lighting the candles. And they go over there, and Jesus says, stay up with me. And of course, all the disciples are sleeping, right? Even his own crew that say they love him fall fast asleep, which is like we are, you know. Anna says sometimes I hit the bed, and my head barely hits the pillow, and I'm gone, right? She's like, I wish I could sleep like you. Well, I wasn't always like that. I don't know, it's just because I'm an old man now, right? But who knows? But anyway, beyond that, it's hard to stay awake sometimes. Jesus says, if it is your will, take this cup and pass it away from me. He's calling to the Father. But it was not God's will. He prayed, and great drops of blood he sweated out, it says in the book of Luke. Judas came, one of his disciples, and kisses him on the cheek while being with a regiment of soldiers. And immediately, everyone knows who Jesus is. You see, we don't understand that in today's culture because we have media. If you want to look at how someone looks, you just look at a picture, or you go look at the news. You know what they look like. You see them in a crowd. But you know, most people, when there are crowds of people and some guy's up in the front, only the guys with the best vision can see the guy in the front. You know, you hear a voice, but you don't really see what he looks like. Okay, it's a guy with a beard, whatever, right? That's how it is. But seeing him directly face to face, they needed a disciple to be with them to guide them. And they had their man. They gave him 30 pieces of silver, the price of a slave. And Jesus was betrayed. He went into pain and suffering, first at the house of Caiaphas, who, by the way, if you go there, it's called the Church of St. Peter Angalicantu. Does anyone know what that is? Angalicantu, the rooster or the crowing, the sound. Angalicantu. Because that was the place where Peter heard them. The rooster will crow, or the cock will crow, or the blowing will happen, however way it is, because it could be any of those things. And that's where the betrayal happened by, or should I say the denial happened by Peter. Jesus was denied by his own people. Only John stuck around through this difficult time. Jesus and Caiaphas had a torture chamber in his basement. You know that, right? The high priest of the temple had a literal torture chamber in his basement. I want a torture chamber. I'm just kidding. Imagine that. Pastor John has a torture chamber in his house. At that point, I'm arrested, right? They say, that guy's weird. That is how power works in the ancient world. Jesus was then taken to Pilate. And on the Passover, he himself was forced to be considered unclean. You can't walk into the house of a Roman, a non-Hebrew that is not practicing. You become defiled. Jesus was defiled by entering. The priests, or should I say the soldiers, didn't mind bringing him in because they don't care. But the priests and Sadducees, they were outside, as well as the Pharisees that were a part of the Sanhedrin. They stood outside. They wouldn't even, it says in the Bible that Pilate had the procurator of Rome, the ruler of that area, the governor. He had to come out and talk to them because they were political leaders. But Jesus was inside. And he says to him, don't you know that I have the power to crucify you or set you free? And Jesus said, you would have no power if it was not given to you from on high. I think that stunned Pilate, especially after his wife had told him, do not mess with this guy. I had a dream. Don't do it. It's one of those omens, in the middle of the night. It's like I wake up. Sometimes Anna will get that. Women are very perceptive, right? And it's like this something's going to happen. I don't know what it is, but it's driving me nuts. But don't mess with this guy. And Pilate, the more he tried to push him off, the more he was pulled in. Pilate sent him to Herod. And Herod, of course, says, I'm not going to give him an easy time. Back to Pilate he goes. Give me a miracle, I'll let you free. Walk across my swimming pool, right? Jesus does nothing. He's sent back. And then Pilate tries to blame the people and say, well, you guys choose. Welcome to politics, right? It's not me that made the decision. I'll put up Barabbas, a known criminal and killer, and I'll put up Jesus, and for sure they're going to choose that Barabbas goes to the cross. And guess what? The people chose Jesus to go to the cross and Barabbas to be freed. And when I say the people, I'm not talking about the normal people. Because on Christmas morning, are you out at City Hall or are you at home? The only people that are at City Hall at 6 in the morning are the politicians that know something's going to happen. The people means those in the Sanhedrin, those who didn't like Jesus, they yelled him down. And at 6 to 7 in the morning, he was condemned. The next day, remember, he ate, condemned. That's a fact. Talk about a kangaroo court. Ever heard of kangaroo court? That comes from Australia. The boing, 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 boing court. And Jesus is condemned, and by 8 in the morning, he's carrying a cross down Via Dolorosa, the main road from the east, from the northern side of the temple where the fortress of Antonio is, and he heads to the west. Now, sometimes people don't know which one it is. There are 2 different options for where he was crucified. Bring the camera over here. Here, by the way, is a crown of thorns. A crown of thorns was put on his head. If you want to check it out afterwards, you can feel it. These nails, stamped out nails, were used to crucify him. Not these ones. I'm not that bad. Nails just like this were nailed through the tender flesh of the Son of God as he got to the end of Via Dolorosa. I believe he turned on that main way just before the Armenian, just in the midst of the Armenian section of Jerusalem. He turns to the right, out the Damascus gate, to the north and east of the Damascus gate. He then was laid on the ground with his cross that he had been carrying. Simon of Cyrene was forced also to carry it with him, or him carry it and Jesus with him. And then he was laid down, and rusty nails were driven through the tender flesh of the Son of God. And he says, Father, forgive them. Do you hear me? Yes. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. But God was looking beyond. Yes, they knew what they were doing, but they didn't understand the ramifications of what they were doing. And then he was raised up. Jesus said in the Word of God that if I be lifted up, I shall draw all. And by the way, when you say the word anthropos in Greek, that means men and women. It's humanity unto me. The devil's worst mistake was hubris. He really thought that by destroying Jesus, he could have full reign over earth, not realizing that death was not meant to be for earth, but Jesus would experience death because that's the one thing that separates us from God. Sin equals death, biblically. It was never meant to die, and yet Jesus moved into an alien environment, something that beyond alien from us, because of course, he created us. He came to his own, and yet his own received him not. But in the book of John, it also says, but to all those who did receive him, he gave the right to be called the children of God. Isn't that powerful? And that includes even those that nailed the nails into his hands, feet, and tore into his side and put the crown on the head. For Jesus died for people, not perfect people, but people. He was raised between heaven and earth, and finally separated from God, by the way, the Father, that is. He said the words in the middle. He said 7 sayings, different things, but in the middle, most important one, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That means, my God, why have you forsaken, forgotten about? Why have you left me here? And we sometimes say, man, he seems depressed. No. He was separated. That is the cry that the human being has. Every human being, as they are forgotten, as they are not loved, as they are not cared for. Jesus entered our shoes, or should I say, if you don't have shoes, he entered your footsteps and became a part of you and me, one with us. And finally he said, it is completed. 9 in the morning he was crucified. Let me do it backwards. 9 in the morning he was crucified. 12 in the afternoon he hung. 3 in the afternoon he breathed his last. 6 hours only. Criminals on the cross never died that quickly. In fact, it's recorded that even for 6 weeks, one man was hanging on a cross, alive, in Jerusalem. Yes, the Romans allowed people to feed them. That was no problem. Leave them there longer. They died not of bleeding. They died of exposure. Gangrene. They died of that. It was terrible, terrible thing to do to a person. But Jesus died after he breathed the words, it is accomplished. And then he said, Father, into your hands I commit Ruach, my spirit. You know that. We talked a little bit about that at the Bible study, right? That the spirit, the Ruach of God, it leaves the person and the light bulb goes out. The electricity is gone and the body is empty. It's like shutting the lights off in the building. I'm not going to ask you to do that right now. And down he hangs. And by the way, before he did that, there was a thief that deserved death that was promised that you will be with me in paradise. So he still grabs another one as he goes out. How do you like that? What a fisherman. Imagine drowning and you take a fish and throw him into the boat as you go down. It was getting near sunset and the disciples, Joseph of Arimathea, of course, Joseph of Arimathea, a rich man, a part of the Sanhedrin, absolutely mortified by what is happening. He thought, I don't know what he thought, maybe with somehow Jesus, through all of these things, somehow he'll just figure his way through the politics. But no, he had a tomb that had never been used for his family. Actually, if it is Gordon's Calvary, it actually, you can see there's a place for 3 people in there. One main person and 2 others on the floor. And he said, he actually went to Pilate and asked for permission. He said, I'll take his body. Is it okay? Pilate says, dude, man, please. And by the way, Pilate always thought well of Jesus, it seems, for he had that sign that the Pharisees and Sadducees hated. It said, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, in 3 languages so that everybody could read it, in Latin, in Greek, and Aramaic. He wanted everybody to see that these people are killing their own. And they said, you should say he called himself a king. No. Okay. Joseph of Arimathea gets his body and they rush him because the sun is setting. Interestingly enough, the Pharisees and Sadducees, they don't care about the Sabbath. They go to Pilate later on and they say, if he got a tomb, if they didn't just burn him like every other poor person out there, we got to have that place protected. Because he said something about 3 days or whatever. Please put a regiment, a small group, 4 soldiers to guard the tomb and seal it up. First Pilate is like, come on. I can imagine he starts getting annoyed, but then he starts thinking, okay, if anything happens, now it's on me again. Yes, so they chiseled in the wire and put the seal on the door, locking it. And you take a look at the tomb here. Look at this. It's kind of cool. I love toys, especially when they're cool. Huh? And you see here, this is how Garden Tomb looks. This is Gordon's Calvary, not the Holy Sepulchre, of course, has all been chiseled out, and history and wars have had their way with that place. But if Gordon's Calvary is not the real, or not the real Garden Tomb, is not the real, I can assume that it would look something like this, because this is ancient, and it's from the 1st century A.D., from B.C. to A.D. And so you have the hole there, and you roll the stone. Here, I'll try to get my finger out of the way so you roll the stone. If you take a look, there is, try not to let it fall. All right, do you see a vent there? See that hole? All tombs had a vent, because what would happen in a tomb is the body would be put there. You roll the stone, and then for about a year, the body decomposes in there. I know this is very exciting to talk about, right? But this is life. The body decomposes in there, and so you need a vent. So it's, when you roll it open, you don't die of it. It vents, allows nature to take its course without people with it. And after that year, you bring a box called an ossuary, about this big, about as big as the femur bone. The biggest bone of the, longest bone of the body is the femur. And the widest bone is either the pelvis or the skull. So you make sure it's big enough. It's an ossuary box. You open the box, you take the bones, you put them into the box. You close the box, and then you file the person away. It's called being gathered to your fathers. In the ancient scriptures, you file, and you could say, there's grandpa, and there's grandma. Just like with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? There's Abraham and Sarah, and there's Isaac, and there's Rebecca, and we're all together, and our families are in there. This tomb had never been used before. That's why it matters, because that tomb is there for that purpose. But this tomb was not going to see decomposition in the way that had normally occurred. I will open the top of this. Oh, my Roman soldier's on the inside here. So the Roman soldier didn't die in there, I promise you. So here, take a look here on the video. Can you maybe put it, oh, you got it up on the screen. Good. All right. Take a look in there. This is the design. See the one on this side? And then the other side, there's an entry room where you come in, and then there's a room where the body is. And to this day, you can go there. And when we do our tours, we go there to see this place. It may not be the actual place, but let me tell you, according to the book of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but especially Mark, because Mark gets into this, and John, when Peter and John are running for the tomb, when Mary came later on, she says, he's not there. So Peter and John run. Peter was ahead, but John ran faster. He passed Peter, came in and looked to his right. And he saw the burial cloth folded. And then Peter comes in afterwards, right? We know the tomb was much like this. Jesus was sealed away. The embalming process did not happen. And by the way, that's a good thing. Then they went home, and it was all over on the Sabbath. Sometimes we Christians live in death, don't we? We sometimes are always quiet at church. We must not make a noise. You can't be happy because we live in death. But I have good news for you, my friends. Death is not our future. Because in the midst of the night, on Saturday night, as the sun dropped over the horizon, something began to happen. The first day was the end of Friday, when Jesus was put in the tomb before the Sabbath. The second day was the Sabbath. I know some people get on this 24-hour periods. Dude, don't get on me about that. I'll say, I'll see you in 2 days. And usually, that would mean to you Monday. It's Sabbath right now. Sunday, Monday, 2 days. Well, no, wait a minute. Monday morning, that's not 2 complete days. It has to be Monday at, what time is it right now? See, this is Western. This is not the way the Bible thinks. 3 days. Friday night, Sabbath, and Sunday. In the midst of the first day, which means the middle of the night, because we're not going by clocks with 24 hours, we're going by sunsets. The Spirit of the living God, Ruach Chaya, right? It's one of those things where you try not to spit, right? Ruach means spirit. Chaya, the spirit of life, entered. And Jesus again became a living soul. He experienced death and hell for you and for me. And the angel says, as the angel breaks the seals and the tombstone rolls away, the angel says, I don't know what he said, doesn't say in the Bible, but I would think he says, are you there? Hello, your Father's calling. Boom. Something nuclear happens. From the inside out, a power of God comes out. Jesus lays to his side and folds up his burial cloth that many believe is Shroud Turin. Sets it aside, stands up, and walks out. Mary and Martha come to the tomb. They're arguing just like us. Who's gonna take care of it? Who's gonna move the stone? None of the guys are here. We're just a bunch of ladies. Where's the guy with the big muscles? How's this gonna happen? But they're too lazy and laying in bed. I get it, okay? They come and the stone is rolled away. And there's an angel sitting on the stone. And by the way, they don't see him as an angel. The angel as an angel. They say, who took, and looked inside, who took my Savior? The angel says something amazing. Give me a second. The angel says, why do you look for the living while in a cemetery? Well, basically that's what it means. Why are you looking for the living among the dead? He is. I love this is. Because that you don't know how to translate it in English. Because it's very present. Boom! Is presently risen. He's not, didn't rise. He is been done risen. How do you do that? How do you say that in English? I don't know. He been done risen. Right? He rose. Huh? She doesn't even believe him. And she starts crying. And she walks back through the garden that's near the tomb. And she's crying. And then the gardener, she thought, says, why are you crying? She says, someone has taken Jesus and I don't know where he is. And then the gardener says, Mary. And all she can say is, Rabboni. It means my teacher. Rabbon. It's rabbi, but Rabboni of mine, my teacher. And then she goes to grasp him, and he says, don't detain me. I have other things to do. I need to go to the Father, and I'll be back. Tell everyone else I'm coming back. Did you hear that? I've got good news for you guys. He's coming back. He said that over and over and over and over again. Because he lives, I can have another day. Because he lives, all fear is what? Gone. Because I know, I know. He holds the, thank you, I need to have you up here, Charlie. He holds the future. And life is worth what? Living. Just because he lives. It says in the book of Hebrews, one of my favorite texts in the entire Bible. It's some people go, huh? But I love that Lord of the Rings imagery in the Bible sometimes that J.R. Tolkien's kind of borrowed. He says, since the children, now the word children is us. We're children of God. Since the children have flesh and blood, he's talking about Jesus, he too shared in their humanity. I like this, how he does it by third person. He too shared in their humanity, so that by his death, he, meaning Jesus, might break the power of him who holds the power of death. All I can think about is the scene with Gandalf and the Balrog. At the bridge of Khazad-dûm, it's there in the museum where he says, you shall not, what? Pass. He puts the thing down, boom, and all of a sudden the Balrog cannot get to the fellowship. The whole bridge breaks, but it breaks right on the edge of where the staff is. Gandalf the Grey is standing between the fellowship and utter destruction, the terrible Balrog, which is death. That which wants to bite you, eat you, and consume you every day of your life. He stands between. And the Balrog falls into the abyss below. Down he goes. And as Gandalf turns about, the whip of Balrog swings around his foot and pulls Gandalf down. And down he goes. Down he goes to the highest mountain of lower earth, the land of the dead, where he becomes not Gandalf the Grey, but Gandalf the White. Comes back as a conqueror. That was borrowed by J.R.R. Tolkien from Easter theology. Jesus himself was pulled to the grave and death. He himself had to succumb to the power of death and destroy the power of death. That is the devil. Verse 15. And then free all of you and me, all of those who all of our lives were held in slavery by fear of death. Now death is no longer a beast with large fangs. Jesus was eaten by death. Death became sick. It could not eat him. And as he was spit out, like Jonah was spit out of the whale. Remember that in the old story? After 3 days, he spit out of the whale. Jesus ripped the teeth out of death on his way out. Now, death tries to bite us. He has no power. My friends, Easter means that you and I don't need to fear. He is risen.